Tonight on The ReidOut.
I mean, I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood. It was carnage. It was chaos. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that as a police officer, as a law enforcement officer, I would find myself in the middle of a battle.
The January 6th hearings began with chilling personal stories from the people caught in the middle of the insurrection. Then we learned in great detail how Trump himself caused it. All of it. Tomorrow, we'll watch the season finale, when we will get the inside story of the 187 minutes Trump spent reveling in the violence that he caused while doing nothing to stop it. And that is where we begin tonight. Over the last 6 weeks of these public hearings, the January 6th committee has put forth an exhaustive record of not just what happened on the day of the insurrection, but everything leading up to it, spelling out the former president's scheme to sell the big lie, summon the mob, and light the match of violence. They've accomplished that using live testimony from more than a dozen witnesses and recorded depositions from people who would know. Republican former White House officials and members of the president's inner circle, his own legal team, both in the White House and on the fringe, all of whom paint a damning portrait of what the twice impeached, disgraced former president knew and when he knew it, and how he chose to act on it, all the way up to what he's still doing now, even as these hearings unfold. Here are some of the key moments so far.
I told him that the stuff that his people were shoveling out to the public was bullshit. I mean, that the claims of fraud were bullshit.
A recent court filing by the Department of Justice explains that a confidential informant from the Proud Boys told the FBI that the Proud Boys would have killed Mike Pence if given a chance.
Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you?
He responded very quickly and said, essentially, that's not what I'm asking you to do. What I'm just asking you to do is just say it was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman.
I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in.
Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, I'm the effing president. Take me up to the Capitol now.
To have the federal government seize voting machines, it's a terrible idea for the country.
So why'd you decide to march to the Capitol?
Well, basically, the president, got everybody riled up.
After our last hearing, President Trump tried to call a witness in our investigation, a witness you have not yet seen in these hearings.
Tomorrow's primetime hearing will focus on the former president's final choice, to do nothing on the 6th as the mob descended directly on the Capitol. We'll hear about those seemingly endless 187 minutes from two former White House officials, Deputy White House Press Secretary Sarah Matthews and Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger. Both resigned after the violence. Now, while it promises to be a blockbuster, with all of the new findings, the committee may not be nearly done, pursuing multiple new avenues of inquiry created by the investigation. There are also this lingering questions about what kind of criminal referrals the committee could put forward to the Justice Department. Although Committee Vice Chair Liz Cheney has repeatedly suggested there could be multiple referrals, she's also added that the DOJ does not need to wait for a formal recommendation to act. One of my next guests has already made some suggestions for Merrick Garland in that regard. Andrew Weissman says the department should rethink its approach and think of the insurrection as what prosecutors call a hub-and-spoke conspiracy to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. And joining me now is Andrew Weissman, former FBI general counsel and a senior member of special counsel Robert Mueller's investigative team, and Maya Wiley, MSNBC legal analyst and president and CEO of the Leadership Conference for Civil and Human Rights. Thank you both for being here. And Andrew, I want to start with the idea of these potential charges, because just based on what we've heard so far, this is what we've kind of put together just as a list, and I want you to go through and correct the record or tell us what seems viable potentially for legal liability for the former president. Obstructing an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the United States, seditious conspiracy, which we've seen the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers charged with, and witness tampering. Where is the potential liability just based on what we've heard so far?
So that is a great list of potential charges. And I think at the outset, your summary of highlights makes it really clear that the next thing that we all have to keep our eye on is, frankly, not tomorrow night. It is DOJ, because the hearings will go away. And it is true that there's a political consequence as a result of those hearings. But whether there will be a legal consequence is whether DOJ rises to the occasion. Now, we have heard from Merrick Garland today, and we heard from Lisa Monaco, the DAG, yesterday, and they seem to be signaling something slightly different in terms of what they're doing, speaking of a broader mandate, for instance. But I think the real issue is, are they going to rise to the occasion? What I wrote about was that you can't just say, we're going to look at the people who attacked the Capitol and do a bottom-up investigation. That will take forever, and it is not clear that you will actually get past the people who were not actually at the Capitol. And one thing that the hearing has clearly shown is this was an orchestrated conspiracy by the former president of the United States. It involved Georgia, it involved other states, it involved Mike Pence, it involved a crazy scheme to have a special counsel in Sidney Powell that was shot down. It involved a scheme to behead the former head of the Justice Department, not literally, but figuratively, to put in a crony. I mean, there were all these different aspects, and the Justice Department needs to open on all of that and really think about what was the former president up to. But I think that's really where our eyes are going to need to turn after tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, and look, the Department of Justice, they say the right things, right? This is what they said today to the point that you made, that, you know, quote, we're going to continue to do our job, to follow the facts wherever they go, no matter where they lead, no matter what level. And this is what Lisa Monaco, the Deputy Attorney General, said Tuesday to a cybersecurity conference. We're going to continue to investigate what fundamentally was an attack on our democracy. Okay. But, you know, Maya, yes, the conspiracy was complex. It spread across the country, but it was also kind of simple. It was kind of to try to rerun the scheme that Roger Stone had in his mind back in the year 2000, which is to say, hey, if there's an objection to these electors, maybe the certification of the electors won't go through. And if you can just find a way to pressure Mike Pence to say, fine, I'll dismiss those electors and use these fake ones instead, voila, there is no certification of the election. Suddenly there's enough chaos that maybe Congress can then do it through voting, you know, vote just through the Congress and make Trump president. It all boiled down to staying in power. And the only person that benefits is Donald Trump. So it is hard to get through this conspiracy, as complex as the pieces were, and leave him out. So I think that's why a lot of people are scratching their heads wondering, to Andrew Weissman's point, why they're focusing so much on giving 15 and 18-month sentences to the brutes that were, you know, beating up on police officers and trying to kill them in some cases, or maybe potentially could have killed them with their actions, I should say, and not going to the guy who would have benefited.
So I love Andrew's hub and spoke analogy, because what we're looking at, exactly to your point, Joy, is the hub is Donald Trump. Because all of these things radiating out, to your point, is all, it's not just that it benefits him directly, which it clearly does. It's that he's directly and personally involved. I mean, the most, I think, damning parts of the story that I think the January 6th committee has laid out elegantly is that you see Donald Trump as the central figure in the conversations witnesses are describing, where he is simply looking for the person or people who are going to give him the answers he wants. And that's why you have different spokes and different levels of complexity and facts. But the story is very simple. He is looking for his path to stay in power, and he will listen to whoever is going to give him that path, even when he has been told it's not a lawful one. That is staggering. And I would just add to Andrew's point about other places to look, because there's also Georgia. There's also the grand jury that's impaneled there, because as we also have heard both in the January 6th committee, but also from the first smoking gun, real public smoking gun we had in this case, was the audio recording of Donald Trump personally calling the state attorney general of Georgia and saying, find me that extra vote. Find me, just get me one more. It's kind of a shock in a way to see that a district attorney in a state seeing that kind of smoking gun opens the investigation, and our own Department of Justice having similar smoking guns, including that one, does not.